Welcome to the Node.js NodeAPI team meeting for May 7th, 2021. We'll follow our standard approach of looking at what is tagged for the milestone 11. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share? If not, okay, I'm going to share my screen and with the milestones. So this is the first one. The first one is talk submissions for OpenGS World. So I guess, Kevin, I saw that you just got a response, which was funny because I did ask last week and I got told that they responded to you already. But anyway, sounds like you got a response today.
Yes. Yes. So I've been working on the presentation. I made a comment on the bottom of here. I guess in the presentation, I'm trying to decide when we're talking about the APIs and things like that, should they focus on the C API side or the Node API side? If you open the presentation link, I've started adding some slides for the thread safe async. If you scroll down, it's like the last set here, right? Okay. In these, I guess the number 10, we can start with 10, okay. I guess. So this is sort of like a general description of what Node has, and then the next slide below is like how I've decided to document, I guess, how you could see it's NAPI underscore or NAPI : but I don't think it's worthwhile to have full code samples for both, or I'm not sure if that's needed. What do we think? And it's also like there's some features that are only in Node add-on API, like async progress worker, because that is backed by a thread safe function, so that's something that we provide additionally. So I feel like that's something to discuss separate. But for example, the thread safe function, I'm not sure if I should have an example for the C API as well as the C++ API. What are we thoughts?
Right. I mean, there's only so much you're going to be able to fit into 30 minutes. So I guess my first take is like, yeah, doing the same code twice doesn't necessarily make sense. The sort of key thing is to discuss that, like, hey, you're going to want the concept of having multiple threads is kind of important. And, we've been adding support for new ways to make that easier on developers, right?
Right. Okay.
Here are kind of the key ways. And then, a little bit of code to, like, I like this sort of kind of summary level where it's like, here are the different options you have. And then even maybe like, when would you want to use them, which I think is a little bit of what you've got, like, the differences.
Right.
So that definitely seems like a great structure to me. And then just enough code to illustrate, maybe to make it more concrete as a developer or something like that.
Okay. And then I'm more comfortable writing in Node add-on API, so I'll probably do the code snippets in that then. And
also
then
likely to be more concise, so that's a good, just from that perspective, that's not a bad thing at all.
Okay. Then we also got feedback saying that we're not allowed to have more than 3 presenters. Any more would
3
be...
or 2?
No, I
think it was 2. Yeah, it was 2 presenters and 4 as a panel.
Right.
So right now, I see that only I am registered as a speaker. I'm not sure if Jim did any of the sign up or whatnot. So I'm not.
I think what they did is when you asked, I think they swapped you in as the primary or something. So because I think you were both on. He may not have to, right? Like. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we were both listed as speakers on the agenda, and now it's just listed as me. So I believe that means that we can add another person on, or if someone else on the team is interested, or I can just do the whole presentation myself. I think those are the options.
Yeah, that was kind of my interpretation. I guess I was a little overly optimistic that they wouldn't mind extra people popping in, but I can see, I guess, if they're, I guess it's once you're a panel, there's extra requirements. So I can kind of see they don't want people going around the rules to get there.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with either doing the whole thing or teaming up with another person. I think it may be easier to do it solo because of the whole recording thing. I don't know.
Recording thing wouldn't be that bad. I'm
right.
doing some with several, and again, I can help if you need help to get multiple people into. But I think it's like, is there somebody else who would like to be? Certainly, I'm already giving some other presentations, so I won't jump in. But if there's somebody else on the team that would like to, that would be good.
Okay.
It'd probably be good to get that closed though, right? Like to let Kevin know, like, does he have to put together the whole thing, or is it somebody else gonna collaborate on it with him?
So right now, what I'm focusing on is the stuff that was assigned to me, the thread safe stuff, and then moving on to Jim's stuff, which was like the building and whatnot. And then I would just continue moving on unless somebody else wants to jump in on that. I did see Gabe, I think, added the add-on and those first couple of slides. Were these newly added by you, Gabe?
Hold on a second. The context stuff, yeah, those are mine.
Nice. Okay. Then did you want to be the second presenter, or did you just want me to present this stuff, I guess?
Well, I was kind of hoping Jim might be, right? Because he was originally the one who put together the abstract and everything, but he's not here now, so I don't know what his final word is on it.
You might have missed, like, he sent me an email saying he has to focus on personal issues and won't be able to be involved.
Oh, I see.
That's why we switched Kevin to be the primary.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
no, our wishes are with him. I'm not sure what it is, but he just won't have time for the next little while.
I see. Well, okay. I mean, in that case, I'm fine with doing it, but I'm happy to yield to anybody else. So that's where I stand.
I know, Nicola, you were helping with the slides too. Do you have an interest, or?
And be right back.
I can help with the slide, and if Gabriel want to be the presenter, for me it's a better solution, because I think that he is better than me to explain some concept. So yeah, it's my opinion.
Okay. Then if we go, if we go back to the issue, we did have a breakdown of what we were going to write about. And I think here, yes, Nicola, you had additional helper methods and resources for getting started. I already saw, going through the previous presentation, we already have like resources and getting started. But I guess if you could move that into the new template format, and then also any of the documentation for the helper methods there.
Yeah, in this weekend, I will do this. If I find the new resources, I will add. So I update something.
Okay.
Okay. I for sure I will do in this weekend. So Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, for sure. Monday you can see the update.
Perfect. Okay. So then the final recording is due the 19th. So that's in 2 Wednesdays. So that leaves us basically one additional Friday meeting on the 14th. So if we get sort of the slides in place this weekend, then we can do like a final in-person review with the team, I guess, on the 14th. And then sometime between then and the 19th, Gabe and I will have to schedule some time to actually do the recording. How does that schedule sound?
Yeah, it sounds
good to me, as long as it's good for you, you and Gabriel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Sorry, since I was mentioned and I was not here, what is the schedule?
Sorry. So the video is due on the 19th.
Okay.
So we have one additional team meeting before then, which would be on the 14th. So what I want to have done are all of the slides done before that meeting, before the 14th. So like this weekend. So we can have a final review with the team on the 14th. And then we have to sync up to do the recording within the next 5 days before the 19th.
Okay.
Does that work?
Works for me. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Then the final point is that there's also a question and answer period that will be held on June 2nd and 3rd. And it's a 20-minute Slack session. And I'm just wondering if anybody would be happy to join that as well. They said there's no video and it's only over text. And the timings that we have are Wednesday Eastern evening, so after 5 p.m. or Thursday in the morning before 4 p.m. So it's a really open time slot, but I don't know if anybody else wants to join.
Okay, so can you repeat those dates, please?
Yes, Wednesday, June 2nd, and the following day, June 3rd.
Okay, so and you said 5 p.m. Eastern?
Yes,
on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
5 p.m.
Yes.
Now, is that the time you chose? You've registered?
It's open. We have times open after 5 p.m. on Wednesday. And then we have times open before 5 p.m. on Thursday.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I could put it. There's a link in the chat. I think you can just go there. Those are the available time slots.
Okay. So then we would just like fill in one of these slots.
Mm-hmm. And then we join the Slack conversation room for those 20 minutes, and then anybody that pings a question, we just answer it.
Okie dokie.
And I'm flexible on either date for any of the available times. So whichever works best for you.
Okay, and how will we receive the Slack coordinates for all this?
I think after we submit our times and everything, we'll get additional information.
I see.
an email or an invite or something like that. I know I registered for a couple for the other talks, and they'll send you the info. You can say, here's the additional people that will come. So I think it makes sense to select based on, you know, your two availability. And then if you send the rest of the team the times, if we can make it too, that is just a bonus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I think I'm open on either. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. Just pick a time. It should be all right.
Okay. At 3 p.m. Can we do? Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
It's
all
fine.
right. Mm-hmm. Okay,
so,
and then I will send you the details. This will be Thursday.
Okay, Thursday.
June 3rd at 3 p.m.
Okie dokie. 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's noon my time. Okay.
Perfect. Then that is all I think I have to discuss for that.
Okay. Sounds good. And thanks for taking the lead on that. That's great.
Thank you.
This one, the doc was published. So actually, let me just.
Yeah, we can close.
Yeah, I just want to find the link. So that's good. Okay. Stale issues. No new stale issues that have been marked as something we should look at. No new issues, no new modules reported here. In terms of debug, I haven't done anything. I guess, Jack, on the matrix of tested methods, just want to check in to see if there's anything you need from people, getting the help you need, questions for us.
Yeah, I'm pretty much finished covering up all the classes, and I think there's like a few more left. I can probably finish this weekend, and there's probably like gaps between certain methods not being covered. So probably the next couple weeks or so, just work on that, and also have an open PR in the Node add-on API that Nicola looked at it for me. I'm wondering if you guys can take a look at it also, if you guys have time.
Right now. This one, let's see, which one?
972.
972, okay. So you're looking for people to take a look at that one.
Yeah.
I see Nick has already taken a look. Okay, I see those were a few days. So do you think you've addressed all the comments so far, and it's ready for another review?
Yeah,
for me, it's good. But Jack added some new method, symbol 4. So if you want to take a look, it's always good. And yeah, for me, the Paracas is good.
Okay. So I guess, Kevin, you'd commented as well. Is it? I guess maybe you can take another look, see if it's okay. Thanks. That sounds good. So we should be able to get that one landed pretty soon. Any other Jack? Any other things you want to just to take a quick look at?
I think that's just a more generic question. If that's okay. Just wondering, what are some other ways I can sort of get more acquainted with this all the code base? Because what I've been doing is I've pretty much been trying out these APIs on my own, running the old tests, see how they work. But I would like more sort of in-depth look at, or more sort of structured, I guess, look through the code base. Where should I go for this?
So in terms of because You've been looking at the classes. I guess if you've been going through the docs, I'm thinking what we have that's like a structured thing. Oops, I'm onto the wrong background. Yeah, I'm still on the wrong background. Yeah, so you're thinking of like ways to learn or to go through like the APIs that are there, or what's the?
I guess yeah, just sort of understand the ins and outs. Like, what should I sort of focus like more primarily on, and like what should I just like sort of leave for later? Like, what are some
the other? I don't think there's any like parts of the API we would say, earlier or later. If you're looking for other resources of like how to see how they work, there's the Node add-on examples repo. Because that's got a number of examples in the different, like if you go to here, Node. Oops. So in here are a bunch of examples, and like underneath these, for example, there'll be a Node add-on API version. So that's one other resource. I don't know if that's answering the question though, if you can.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think also one thing that may be beneficial is looking at maybe trying to port modules to Node add-on API. I don't know if that would be helpful to look at some native modules that use maybe libuv or something somewhere to see if you could port those over to Node add-on API or something. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing ideas out.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. The other thing, of course, that you might want to look at is simply just the issues reported, and just look at try to reproduce the issue for one, and then trace through the code and see if the issue is even caused by Node add-on API or by NodeAPI, and then just make a report on that. Just reply to the issue saying, yeah, I reproduced it. That in itself is very valuable to just be able to reproduce the issue.
Okay.
And then from there you can move on to like, if the issue happens with like a library that's out there that's been ported to an API or to Node add-on API, then you can try to see what the library does at that point where it's behaving incorrectly, and just try to create a second test case from scratch using Node add-on examples, which just has that one incorrect sequence of operations, and then that's like a minimal test case, right? Yeah. So then you can post that. You can create like a gist for it, or even just a small repo which just has a couple of files in it that does exactly the one thing that goes wrong. And then that's also very valuable to have like a minimal test case, because that's the beginning of a test that we can then add to Node add-on API.
Okay.
And of course, sooner or later fix it.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things you might want to do next.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. So that's unless you have any other questions, we'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'm good for now. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks. I'd like to kick off the looking at issues to getting back to looking at 906, because I think I could still use some input from people. So let me go over that to Node add-on API. So we talked a bit about this one last time, which was around the crash that we were seeing in 16. And I went and I actually, started working on what we suggested, which was to, and actually maybe it's worth looking in the code here. GitHub, JS source. Oops. I'm gonna have to actually navigate there.
Yeah, you want like blobs.
Node.
Or tree.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Node. So I think it was here. So this was call all. No, sorry, I'm. This JS native API that was in. Call. It was call all or finalize all.
Finalize all. Yeah.
Right. So the suggestion was here to avoid the set immediate in and let me go to the PR that I've got to the set immediate when the finalizers were being called. But I have some things on that I want to ask questions on. So it turned out that wasn't the only thing that was necessary to stop the crashes, and in fact, actually wasn't even required to stop the crashes. You know, I'd added the stuff we needed to be able to tell, are we an teardown or not? Mm-hmm. But in here, that alone didn't fix the crash, and I've done some additional investigation, and actually, the only change that's required to avoid the crashes is this ref and unref. The first question I wanted to discuss was, is it possible that we don't actually call this version of the call finalizers when we're doing that loop? I mean, I've been trying to create a test case, and I see it calling things, but it seems to only call the version that's in JS native API.
Yes. That's because the finalize alls are happening from the destructor, right? And by the time the superclass destructor is called, the subclass has already disappeared, including all its overrides and everything, right? So that's why we were saying that we need to move that finalize all, those two finalize all calls. We need to move them out of the destructor and into the and right before the spot that says delete this in unref.
I tried that, and that actually made tests fail. Maybe because it was actually calling the set immediate versus not, right? Because we don't want to call the set immediate version in that case.
Right.
So it's almost like maybe if we leave it the way it is, where it's in here, we don't actually need to check if we're in environment teardown or not.
Okay. All right. Because in that case, the override doesn't happen, right? So,
right.
But I mean, is the finalizer the same? Like, does it call the same final?
I see. So it's that we may actually be calling the wrong finalizers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we go back, if we look at what's being called in here, and it basically does this call into module, right?
Yeah.
But it sets it in immediate. You know, puts a handle scope, puts that, although this part is the core, right?
Yeah.
If we go back and look at this one, view file, the call finalizer, and that looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, this is the superclass, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then it's calling it. Oh, I see. So you're basically saying that you have accomplished to avoid set immediate just by virtue of the fact that it's in the destructor.
Well, that's already the way it is.
Right.
It's like basically I from what I could see in the final, now again, creating the actual case is hard, but the like from what I could see from the instrumentation I added, it didn't look like I was getting that other one called when I was going through this list, which made me wonder if, like, because of something, we would always be calling this, which it sounds like we are, in which case we don't need to make the change that would do the set of me, you know, because why move it to force the problem to then check for the problem? And if you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so that was my first question. So that, like, to validate that that actually makes sense, to just say, okay, well, we don't, let me go, if I can go back there.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
It's arguable whether it's a good idea to rely on the destructor behavior, because we're relying on the destructor behavior now.
Right.
You know, because it is kind of surprising. Like, you always call the subclass implementation that overrides the superclass implementation, except during environment teardown. You know, that's a bit surprising. Right. You know,
maybe so that may be an unrelated problem, but okay.
Yeah, maybe you could add like a comment. Maybe there's already quite a big comment there right before finalize all, but maybe you could add one to explicitly mention that this will result in NodeAPI env methods being called because NodeAPI env has already been cleaned up, like the class has already been removed, and thus all the overrides. Just to to be clear in the future, because this has been a surprising sort of turn of events.
Right. If I can do that, because I'd moved it and it broke, like our tests actually failed, and I'm like, I don't know why that is, but it seems to be doing, like, it seemed to be working, so I thought, well, let's not mess with that for now. So
right.
But yeah, so I guess it's the question, like, do we want to? We could change it so that it would always call the superclass one, if that makes sense, or did we just add the superclass one to handle the specific case?
I don't quite understand the question.
Well, it's like, do we think that it would be better to change the code so that it does force calling the override or the NodeAPI version, but then have to add in this additional checking to basically undo it, or is it, or documenting it, like you said, the best thing to do for now?
Well, there is another reason why you'd want to not do the finalize all from the destructor, but rather from before the destructor, and that's that one of the overrides that disappears because we're doing this in the destructor is whether you can call into JS or not, and because the subclass calls like the node environment and asks whether it's okay to call into JS or not, whereas the superclass just always says yes, it's okay to call into JS. So that disappears, but that's not a problem that you need to address here, right? And there is another solution, which is to store the answer to the question as to whether calls can be made into JS in the superclass in a Boolean, right? And the Boolean gets updated every time NodeAPI gets control, right? So when control passes into NodeAPI, that variable gets updated, and so even if we call even if you call finalize all from the superclass, because the subclass is already gone, the last answer that the subclass received will be stored in the superclass, right? And so if we make that change, then this is how it will be. And so the superclass will also have the right answer as to whether it's okay to call into JavaScript or not. But that's relevant for the refined sort of statuses work, not for this work.
Right.
But that would be one reason to do things differently, although not entirely necessary, since there is an alternative solution. So then that doesn't seem like a strong reason to make this change.
Okay. So the second question is, okay, so if we said, okay, we're not gonna, I can back out the changes that actually check for teardown, and because it seems like we're not going to be hitting these set immediates in the first place.
Yeah.
And that reduces the code change. The other thing that seems to be is like there was two set immediates. There was one for the buffer finalizers and one for the call finalizer. The crash only seems related to the call finalizer. Like I removed it from there. Oh, I saw crashes. I put it back, and I removed it from here and saw no crashes.
Right.
But the question is it likely to crash and we're just not triggering it, or is there something different going on here?
It's a good question. So wait a second. So you said there were two finalizers. These are all like subclasses of finalizer.
These are both in so NodeAPI. So if we look at the file, call finalizer. So this one is the subclass of the M, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right, and then this one is a BufferFinalizer, which is a subclass of finalizer.
Okay, right. Wow, wow. So this was like a double set immediate because, like during normal operations, right? The call finalizer is being called during a GC from the environment, right? Because when a GC happens, call finalizer is basically the entry point for actually executing the finalizer, because it sets things up and then it runs the finalizer, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
And so that does a set immediate, right? So that sort of bumps it once, and then when the actual finalizer happens, it gets bumped again.
Okay.
So that's pretty crazy.
So that's probably a different issue.
Though wait, no, not quite, because
the buffer finalizer is already get directed to the actual buffers finalizer of the beta object.
Right, because it's static void, right?
Yeah. So that means that's it to say there is only one set immediate in the buffer finalization. And since in the set immediate we didn't call, like say, call finalizer, but just like say call into module in the buffer finalizer. So there isn't like say double jumping.
No, you're right. You're right. There isn't. Okay, because this finalized buffer callback is a function pointer passed to node. Yeah, true.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so then that doesn't use any of our methodology.
Yeah.
But that does mean that normal objects, non-buffer objects, they all get finalized indirectly, right? During normal operations. Because
there is something that is different as the buffer from the normal object. The buffer finalizer is triggered from the backstore, but the backstore is a shared pointer. Shared pointer in C++, and I haven't dig into the weird that how the shared pointer of the backstore is being, like say, decremented on the reference, but there is a chance that shared pointer may be released other than in the GC phase. So that's why we have a set immediate in the Anna have a change on the buffer finalizer previously to alleviate the issue around the backstore referencing. So there is a fundamental difference from of the buffer finalization from the normal object.
Yeah, if I remember correct, like I was trying to stick printfs to see when things were happening, and if I remember correctly, I think like what you just said might be the case where the buffers seem to be finalized without a GC running. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay. So that might actually match up with what I'd seen. Like without putting a GC global.gc in, I was seeing something happen. Now, of course, that could have just been, the GCing itself too. But so the question is here, is there like, is this ref and unref like it's not needed to address the crash that we saw, but is it still something that would make sense to include?
Well, at first glance, it seems like the safe thing to do, although I'm just checking. Okay, yeah, so the unref is inside the callback for set immediate, right? It's pretty far. Yeah, okay, yeah, that
here, yeah. Yeah, it's basically like, yeah, we ref before we call the set immediate, and then this is inside, I think this is the scope. And I added this extra scope to make sure that only after this thing is done do we do the unref.
Right. Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's
and I guess okay, so
reasonable.
Go ahead. Okay, so that one you would so go ahead.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Okay.
And then I guess we don't need this isenv teardown anywhere, right? Because we just do the ref.
Right, yeah, I basically like took those out and ran, and it over 2,500 runs over like 8 hours, well, actually more like 12 hours, it was fine. The thing I really needed to resolve it was in here, sorry, in the call finalizer, where was it?
May I suggest
right in here.
improvements here, because calling with ref and ref seems quite unsafe, because imagine if this lambda is never executed, so unref is never called, so it means we have a ref count cost leak, right?
But it should be called. There's no reason it would not be called, right? Like it has to be called. Otherwise, we not only have a ref leak, we also have like a buffer leak.
Right. And it can't, yeah, like it, right.
It's still like in C++, it would be always better to have this, what we call like a exception safe code, and you have using some kind of smart variable. Like imagine if we have something like a environment wrapper, which in constructor calls ref and destructor calls unref. So technically, then we capture this variable in lambda. So no matter how lambda is destroyed, we'll call unref automatically.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess what you could do, I suppose, I don't know if that'll work, is to just have a variable that is, well, that is passed by copy. It's captured by copy into the lambda, and then the constructor for that variable refs and the destructor for that variable unrefs. That would be the other way to do it, and then the refing and the unrefing would be contained in the definition of that variable. So like, I don't know, like a environment scope, or I don't know what you would call that, but it would be basically that. And then because this is passed by copy, you'd have to have like move semantics for it, right? And that's it. So basically move semantics, and constructor says ref, destructor says unref, and then you can pass it, you can just pass it into the lambda, and that would be it. That would be the opposite way. But honestly, I'm okay with it this way, because it's still bookended, and we have lots of places where we do this. So I know it's not as clean a solution.
I think we should, that one might be a good, we should, like if there was, we should make a class and use it across a bunch of places. So not necessarily do that in this change, but it would be a good follow-on change, because like there are a few other places where ref and unref are called, right?
Well, yes. But the problem is, if you do want to render it as such a kind of class, then, well, yeah, okay, yeah, wherever it's bookended, yeah, like that with ref and unref, like if it's ref do unref, then yeah, we might want to do that. Like just make it something that unrefs when it passes out of scope. So actually, another thing I just thought of is instead of that solution with the move semantics and all that, it might just be simpler to just construct one of those objects as like a capture parameter, right? I think you can do that, right? Or does it have to refer to something that's already in the scope? I don't know enough about lambdas. Like, can you like put like in the square brackets, can you put just like you know, let's say we call this class, we call this like environment scope or
yes,
NodeAPI
yes.
environment. So you can just say NodeAPI environment scope bracket env, and then just put that in the square brackets, and then that's it. That's all you would really have to do, right? Because then that would pass out of scope when the Lambda is done executing.
Not done executing, but then Lambda's destructor been called. So technically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, which is when it's done executing, right? Okay. Or right after.
So basically,
I just don't know internals of 7 immediate, so just kind of
what would that look like?
So instead of well, I guess the equal in the square brackets, what does it grab? What do you grab using the equal? What do you grab from the outside? Env. You grab env from the outside.
Which is probably not a good idea here, right?
Well, I mean, it's refed, so that's okay. But still, yeah. So that's the only thing you need from the outside is env.
That's what, yeah, I mean, that's what's called in here, right?
Yeah, that's well, actually, no, that's not the same, because it receives a parameter of an env, right? So the env in the innermost is actually passed. Is actually passed into the function.
Right.
It happens to be the same value, but that way you don't need the outside. So right. Yeah. Okay. So the innermost uses this data and hint, which is pretty static. That should stay the same because data and hint can only change if you've ever called into user code. So that's safe. So yeah, the only thing is this env. Yeah, if we could have a class that sort of does the refing and unrefing, then yeah, you could just construct a class as one of the capture parameters to set immediate, and that's it. And then it would be cleaner than this ref unref thing.
Right, so because technically it will be future-proof. Like imagine that somebody else in the future adds some code which escapes this scope somehow, like and have this always done automatically in destructor, like using this effectively C++ goodness.
Yeah,
future protect ourselves. And this smart pointer for environment can be used in many other scenarios, like you said. It's probably good follow-up change, like you said. Maybe we can do it across the board and kind of instead of using this naked ref and ref, we can use the smart pointer instead.
Right. Yeah. All right. I think for now, you know, we can just do that sort of tracker class. I don't know what you want to call it. And actually, yeah, if you find other places like where we ref and unref, then it definitely makes sense to just use one of those scopes there.
So and then the last question I had is like, does this here, well, not the second last question, this makes sense as something that is needed, right? Like after call finalizer is executed, it may assume that it would go on to potentially destroy anything that's keeping that env alive. Like, does that make sense from people's understanding of the flow?
Well, but this also refs the environment, right?
Well, that's what I'm adding is like, this is what solved the problem, refing and unrefing the environment. Yeah. Without that, does it make sense that, you know, like obviously until you called this, like until the finalizer was called, something was keeping the environment alive.
Right, yeah.
Right? After the call finalizer is executed, does it make sense that whatever used to be keeping it alive is now gone?
That's an interesting question. Huh.
I'm kind of thinking the answer, like, well, yeah, my thought process was like, okay, it's from this perspective, we think we've actually already run the finalizer. We just haven't actually done it, right? So, you know, yeah, the finalize we're done. We've run the finalizer, and so it's now. But because we've done set immediate, that could actually happen after whatever cleanup of the finalizer occurs.
Yes. Okay. I think I understand. So like in the set immediate case, we need the env on the ref on ref, right?
Yes.
But in the other case, we don't, because obviously the environment is still alive. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten called, and the environment will remain alive when we're done, because we don't.
Yep.
I mean, if it doesn't, then that's a huge bug, because so somewhere we unref where we didn't first ref.
It's synchronous as well.
Yeah.
Like if we look at the this code here, without the set immediate, we just call this method, it runs, we come back, right? So we should not have changed the env. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that's completely reasonable.
Okay. So I just wanted to,
fundamentally, you ran this for much longer than before, and it didn't crash and it didn't leak, right? So
yeah, I looked at our test. Unfortunately, our test cases leak already.
Oh.
So if you run Valgrind on our node add-on API test, we leak like 32 meg. Oof. But I ran it with and without this change, and it's the same.
Okay, it leaked
it varies by a few bytes each time. Like sometimes it was 31,998, sometimes it was 32,000. But like, so from my runs, it was like you can't tell any difference with or without this change.
Except it doesn't crash, which is great.
It doesn't crash, exactly. Yeah, that's the one change. Okay. The one thing that does seem different. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that seems like pretty good empirical evidence in support of this being the correct thing to do.
And then the last thing was, okay, how do we test it? Because I haven't been able to find a way. Like I've been able to trigger code that, like copying some of our existing things, will actually run this call finalizer, but never in the state where the environment got deleted before it finished.
That seems like a tough one, right? Because a lot of things have to line up for this to actually happen. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that it is so difficult to reproduce in the first place.
Yep.
Right. So I don't know.
Exactly. Like even running any one of our tests didn't seem to reproduce. It seems to have to be the whole test suite
and for a long time, right? Before it crashes.
Oh yeah. It's like 600 CPU hours from my perspective. So.
Yeah. I don't know that we could test this. Like, yeah. I mean, it would. I don't see how you could make this like deterministically fail within a single run.
So maybe you can comment on the issue. Like Anna's kind of like, hey, I agree, change is probably okay, but it needs a test.
Right.
So if you can comment, I spent 2 or 3 hours trying to come up with something, and I'm out of ideas.
Right.
But so it'd be good to have other people who said, yeah, I thought about it too. And I know, Legendikas, you were thinking about some ideas. So do you have some thoughts?
I was thinking that we are hardly able to testing this behavior using merely the NodeAPI C interface, right? So, I'm reproducing the previous issue on the 38,000 the PR. I was trying to using the internal API and directly coding into the V8 to trigger the behavior that we are expecting. So I was assuming that we can create a more complex and controllable test case with the internal APIs and V8 direct calls and wrapping and alongside with the NodeAPI add-ons.
Right. I'm not sure, like, we can, like, is it possible to control the GC behavior more? Like, we can call it ask for a GC,
we can insert,
right?
like, say, in M teardown callbacks, like what we do in the NodeAPI internal implementation. Like say we created a teardown callback while we creating the NodeAPI environment. It's on the line of
I gotta go. Talk to you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
So, but yeah, if people can kind of chime in on the issue in terms of the testing, that would be great. We'll figure out whether we want to block this on that or not. And like Lejean de Casse, if you have some good ideas on how we might, that would be great. But I'm kind of stuck.
Yeah, great. So I may be submitting some PR to illustrate how we can work on this.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at time. Is there anything else that people think we really need to cover before we close out?
Michael, that pretty much topic we discussed last time about standalone NAPI in terms of using in JavaScript engine and stuff. We discussed in our team. We have a couple of kind of asks. So pretty much we would like to contribute, but we want to understand what exactly needs to be done. There are kind of different line of thoughts. One of them, it would be nice to have pretty much to have maybe like node.js CI loop to take care about some kind of, to ensure that all these different node APIs can be compiled and used as a standalone entity. Mm-hmm. So one approach we use, I talked to one of the engineers from our team in React Native Windows, that then we run CI, we're creating a kind of small NPM package just to publish a subset of our code. And then we have some process how this subset of code can be tested in different environments. It's one line of thoughts. If it should be kind of every time people say changing anything outside of node.js, we run in some process, and which will say like, oh, you introduce some extra dependency, which causes failure in consuming these APIs.
Right. Certainly, we can look at like another test job as part of the node CI. But we'd have to figure out kind of what that looks like.
Right. It's one line of thoughts. Another line of thought, like pretty much to what we discussed before, like if pretty much definitely kind of makes sense to have the whole separate test suite, which can be run probably independently from node.js code. Because technically today, if you look on NAPI unit tests, they're mostly driven from JavaScript. It's a plus and minus, right?
Yeah.
Because certain things from native code can be really tested end to end if you always drive from JavaScript. I don't know. It's probably kind of very subjective opinion. But,
yeah, I think like most of I'm just trying to think that like a lot of the, if not all of the node test suites are driven like from JavaScript to start.
Right. That's what we see today there.
Yeah.
Anyway, like so what we decided in our team, like we would like to contribute, we would like to participate, because we have a lot of interest in using this NAPI outside of node.js, namely for V8 DLL and for probably like a React Native Windows extensibility story as well, because one of the best advantages of NodeAPI is actually it's API safe. It's so instead of inventing our own, we're saying like, why not to use this basis?
Yep, makes sense.
Hopefully we can contribute there something, and also I think we will also have a good opportunity for us to ask for some additional requirements for what we need to make our scenario successful. But I think it will enrich the whole NAPI in the end if we do that.
It's good to hear that confirmation. Is there something that we need to like, have you opened issues for things, or is there anything like you're sort of waiting on the team to comment on before moving forward?
I think like the main thing we want to do at this point, just understand what will be our steps, like what we, like you said before, if we want to establish like separate repo and stuff, like what exactly, we don't have that much knowledge about kind of the infrastructure for node.js today, and pretty much setup you use, and thankfully maybe helping us to make first steps to kind of help with direction. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we should set up a separate meeting to go through, like we created this NodeAPI test suite.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we should have a separate meeting to sort of talk about next steps for starting to make that become more of a reality, right? Like,
right.
How would we extract the tests? How would that work? So yeah, brainstorm on that, I think would make sense. I can take the action to set that up. I'll send it to, I think I have your email, right?
Yes, so technically me, Tudor, and Hali from our team,
Okay.
It'd be nice to participate in this meeting, and whoever else.
Yeah, I'll copy all of the NodeAPI team here, and because I have all their emails, and I'll send it to you, and we can find a time to do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thanks to everybody for taking the time to attend this week, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time. Thanks.